Hello, neighbors. My name is Dr. DJ Torres, and I am a proud candidate for Denver Public Schools Board of Education, running for District 3. I would like to start off by saying thank you to all of you who might participate in watching this. It really is a great, I'm filled with a lot of gratitude to recognize all of you who are using your time to participate in this process. I'll start off by saying I'm a DPS dad. My partner and I adopted a kiddo 4 years ago. We are proudly having him attend his neighborhood school in Denver Public Schools. And aside from that, I also have a background in public education. I was a DPS special educator, and then I went on to work in the central office, working in culturally responsive education, which focused on making the curriculum and educator training more responsive culturally for all of our educators across the district. I want to start off by talking a little bit about trust. One of my goals is to instill public trust back into the process of public schools. This trust is a commitment that's made to our community and honors action, and not abandoned once the election is over. I'll be the kind of board member whose actions align with the promises I make because I know that trust is earned every day and in every action that I take as a board member. In my responses today, I hope you experience my commitment to restoring that public trust in how our board works and how we commit to educators and community. I look forward to this conversation and to earning and keeping your trust as we work together to move Denver Public Schools forward. Thank you.
What are the top needs of the school district? How are Denver Public Schools doing educating kids across the city? What is going well and what is not going well?
As a former DPS educator, as I mentioned, central office worker, and equity leader, and now a DPS parent, I've seen the district from the classroom, from the system, and from the family perspective. What's going well is that we have an incredibly resilient student base and community base that's deeply committed to the educators who continue to rise to the occasion, even when resources are stretched thin. We also have schools and programs that are innovating in ways that show real promise for our students and their outcomes. But what's not going well often is that too many students are still not meeting grade level expectations, and opportunity gaps remain across income, race, and ability. Teacher morale is strained because of this, and families often feel shut out of decision-making processes. The top needs right now are stable funding for classrooms, real accountability to ensure policies translate into better outcomes, closing some of those opportunity gaps, and, as I've mentioned and will mention throughout, stronger community trust. My commitment is to focus on equity, to elevate educator voices, and to make sure every child feels safe, seen, and supported in their public education process. Because we know that when a student sees and experiences themselves and their identities in their classroom, they have better outcomes. And that happens through better education and training with our educators who are committed to this field. Thank you.
This next question was submitted by a DPS student. In light of the recent Evergreen school shootings, how will you protect students from acts of gun violence? What measures or plans will you put in place?
As someone who has led national safety programs at an organization called Sandy Hook Promise, I know both of the urgency and possibility of preventing gun violence in our schools. In light of tragedies like Evergreen shootings, we cannot afford to treat safety as an afterthought. What works is a layered approach. First, this is prevention. Prevention programs that help students look out for one another, speak up when they see and hear things that concern them, and build inclusive school cultures that reduce social isolation. Second is protection. Making sure every school has an up-to-date safety plan, trusted adult connections, and strong partners with local law enforcement and mental health providers. Third, accountability, ensuring resources go directly to student supports and not just reactive measures that lead to more school-based hardening. I've scaled these kinds of programs to tens of thousands of schools across the country and to millions of students in the United States. I know that they save lives. Data shows that these programs save lives. And as a DPS board member, I'll fight to ensure every student has both the physical safety as well as the emotional supports they need to thrive.
Can you explain where the money to fund our schools comes from? And what changes, if any, are needed to ensure that the district has the money it needs to deliver quality educational opportunities to all students?
Funding for Denver Public Schools comes from a mix of state dollars, local property taxes, and federal supports. But right now, that funding is not equitably distributed, and schools serving higher need communities are often left behind. I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets for both the city level and nationally, and I know how to align resources with real outcomes. To truly deliver quality education, Denver Public Schools needs predictable state funding that accounts for inflation and student needs, a stronger push for their fair local revenue distribution, and transparency in how money flows to schools. Families and educators deserve to see not just how their money is spent, but whether it's making differences for kids and their outcomes. It's not just about dollars, it's about values. When we invest in educators, student supports, and inclusive programs, we invest in the future of our city. My priority is making sure every budget decision reflects the promise that every student deserves a safe, excellent education.
What K through 12 personal experience most impacts your views on education, and is it relevant today?
The K through 12 experience that most resonates with me, and I think still has the most relevance, is the work I did with the No Justice, No Peace board resolution. The young students at MLK Early College came to the central office when I was working in equity in the central office, and they said, we want to see our identities reflected better in our history lessons and the lessons we learn across our school day. So along with those students, their educators, and myself and a couple of coworkers in the central office, we built what is now the No Justice, No Peace board resolution. That resolution turned into a body of work that I also then managed for the district. And that was an opportunity to focus on equity in every curriculum offering that the district has, as well as provide educator training and build feedback loops for communities, families, students, and educators. That had a lot of relevance both at the time and now. I would love to see more relevance put into that body of work because that came from community, it came from students, and it was a powerful reflection back to those students and communities that said, hey, we hear you, we believe you, and we want the same things for you reflected in your education. So we centered that, built a policy around it, and then built bodies of work around it. I'm very proud of that, and I believe it still has a lot of relevance today and could have an ongoing continued relevance in the future as well.
How do you see the role of charter and innovation schools in the DPS system? How should the board ensure that all schools, regardless of governance model, offer high quality and equitable opportunities?
For me, charter schools and innovation schools offer an opportunity for Denver Public Schools families to participate in an education that they believe is the best for their young people. And in that respect, I honor the lived experiences of our families and our community members who are choosing those experiences. That being said, as a board member, I will fully support a well-funded, rich experience for everyone to attend their neighborhood school. That means that whenever we are balancing the differences between a district-run school based out of the central office, a district-run school that we consider a neighborhood school, that those outcomes are the same, if not better, than the outcomes that we experience in charter schools and innovation schools. The problem is that often without a lot of control over what is taught in those charter school and innovation schools, folks can have an education that doesn't meet the needs of all of their students, and often that can be reflected in the data. So as a board member, charter schools and innovation schools are within the purview and the responsibility of the board, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And I will continue to do everything I can to promote a rich, healthy, vibrant neighborhood school possibility, knowing that no matter what the governance model is, we expect absolutely high outcomes from charters, from innovation schools, and from our neighborhood schools, and we'll continue to push those moving forward.
Your website states, ensure families, educators, and students have a meaningful role in shaping decisions about school changes through accessible meetings, multilingual outreach, and shared decision-making processes. How will you bring about accessible meetings and multilingual outreach to the many families in District 3 who have strained schedules and limited conversational abilities?
So part of the governance model of the Board of Education right now is policy governance, and that means that the board creates the desired outcomes that the district will have, and the superintendent is in charge of the means through which those outcomes are achieved. In that process, and I would honestly say inadvertently, community voice has been stifled, if not entirely cut off. I've been out in community hearing from community members, and they say over and over to me, they might not have a clear understanding of what the board does, but they always have a clear understanding of what they want the board to do, which is to maintain very clear, open, transparent communication. And that's with all levels of the district. That includes families, students, educators, leaders in schools, leaders in the central office. So for myself, one of the first acts that I'll do as a board member is to enact a regular cadence of meetings with community. That means monthly or bi-monthly meetings where we gather with folks to discuss the issues that the board may be voting on, discuss issues that the community wants the board to vote on, and develop a really clear process and pathway for every idea that comes from District 3 to be elevated from and supported by community. So that again includes monthly meetings or bi-monthly meetings. It includes translation services. It also includes outreach to folks in their native language so everyone feels like they can participate actively in that process. And I recognize that that feels like a big task, and I've heard from folks that that feels like a task that might be too big. I say it's the responsibility of the board member, and I will take that on wholeheartedly. Today you've heard me talk about rebuilding trust. Trust in our school board, in our educators, and in our communities. That's not just a theme. That is the essence of democracy and the heart of my campaign. I've discussed my record. I've led equity efforts both in Denver Public Schools, for the city and county of Denver, and I've also built national school safety programs and partnered with teachers and families across the country as both a DPS educator and as a DPS dad now. With your vote, I will keep these promises and commitments and ensure our schools are led by community, and that's you. Together we can restore trust, strengthen our schools, and give every child in DPS the future that they authentically deserve. Thank you very much.